What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. When the Switch 2 came out, it was pretty clear it was selling well. Now, though, we have our first real reports out of the US exactly how well it's done, and go figure, it set some new records. We're going to go over that, though, here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 and Sony with a new mode that was mentioned that has people now talking once again about the potential for Sony to re-enter the handheld market. And we have been talking about Nintendo Direct for July. Next week seems like the time for that to happen since it's the last week. But now with the recent filing, it does seem like everything is lining up, as well as some recent comments. We'll go over all of that and more, guys. If you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. Of course, we are here every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time, trying to keep people up to date on gaming news. So if that's something you're interested in, check back here every weekday morning. We're going to start today, though, with Legos. Well, the Lego Game Boy, which we've already heard about. It's been mentioned. Now, though, we can see what it looks like. Here it is. This just kind of went live randomly last night. You can see it on Amazon. This is the Lego Super Mario Game Boy. Now, they do say it's 421 pieces. It's coming in at $60, and this actually looks pretty good. I'm not a big Lego person, but I can still appreciate something like this where I go, hey, that'd be very, very close to the original. They, in fact, say that it's the same size. It's supposed to be 1-to-1. It's as authentic as they can get it, and what's cool is, while it's the original brick Game Boy with the full color scheme, it has two cartridges. We have Super Mario Land, and then we also have The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. And the way it works, it seems they have like these screens that you can change out, so you can sort of set the scene there with the cartridge in. And that seems kind of fun. And it comes in, I think, a bit more reasonable than what we've seen with recent Lego releases from Nintendo with those collaborations where they're $180 or 200 some odd dollars. At $60, 421 pieces, that seems manageable. Anyway, it's coming out October 1st as they have it listed on Amazon, and pre-orders are currently live, so you can check it out. Also, one big feature Nintendo has for the Switch 2 is the mouse mode with the Joy-Cons. It's just not the greatest experience in terms of ergonomics, so naturally, people are starting to make accessories to make it a bit easier. This one you can see is posted over on Layer Shift. They say, so we gave it a real mouse grip, meet MouseCon. It's a comfortable Joy-Con mod that makes mouse mode easier to handle. Now, they did have files below in this thread, so if you have your own 3D printer, you can just go ahead and print it for your own personal use. Otherwise, they have them listed on Etsy. I think it's $16 for one of these like MouseCon grips, and the idea naturally is you drop the Joy-Con in there, and then it mimics like the mouse form factor there, so it's just easier to grip and move around, which I'm a little surprised Nintendo hasn't leaned into this more, and they still could, but their own like branded adapter, so it's a mouse pad. That seems like the most obvious thing out of all of it. And maybe they would do something in that regard if they release, say, a Mario Paint. It's always possible. They could have some weird or wacky kind of game or experience that releases, and then, oh yeah, it's also bundled in with the accessory. For now, though, hey, if you have a 3D printer, you can make this yourself, or if you want to spend $16, they have it listed on their Etsy store, and you can have one shipped in. Oh, and we had some unfortunate news as Terminator 2D No Fate has been delayed. This was posted on their official account. They say Terminator 2D No Fate will be releasing on October 31st. It was originally going to come out in the first week of September, so we aren't too far out now. This is almost a 2-month delay. Now, they say coordinating and manufacturing the physical release has been a longer process than we anticipated. As a result, we've had to delay the release of the game. They apologize and thank you for bearing with them. They say this delay will also give the team at Bitmap Bureau extra time to work on some final refinements for the day one patch, and we'd like all players to have the opportunity to experience the best version of T2D together. So, they'll have more time, sure, but the game itself looks awesome. Okay, now all of a sudden for me, it's a good Halloween game. October 31st, you can pick that up and hand out candy while also playing that in probably in handheld mode on the Switch 2 there. So a shame we got to wait a little longer, but it sounds like it'll be better for it overall. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Circana sales results. These would be the results in the US when it comes to just video games and spending. And go figure, turns out when you release a brand new system from Nintendo in a month, it's going to do very, very well. Just the market overall. And in fact, we can see this is posted. This is over from Matt Piscatella on his official account, where he says, in hardware, June hardware spending increased by 249% when compared to a year ago. This to now $978 million, just shy of $1 billion, saying this is a record high for hardware spending in a June month, surpassing the $608 million reached in June 2008. Goes on to say that the Nintendo Switch 2 sold 1.6 million units in June. It's the highest launch month unit sales for video game hardware in US history. The previous high was the 1.1 million units of PlayStation 4 sold during November 2013. So it was a significant jump from that, by the way, from 1.1 million as the previous record holder to 1.6 million. That's nearly 50% more for the Switch with its first month sales there. That is that's quite impressive. Now, it of course goes on to say the Switch 2 was June's best-selling video game hardware in both units and dollars. PS5 still remains the best seller year to date across both measures, but who knows by the end of this year, going through the holidays, how all of that works out with the Switch 2 continuing to roll along in terms of just sales and momentum. Now, taking a look at the top, I'll say the top 10 when it comes to games for the month. Elden Ring, Night Rain still holding the top spot there. Then we have Death Stranding 2 on the beach. That's pretty good. Again, it came out right towards the end of June, so I feel like that's a very strong performance right out of the gate for Death Stranding 2. Mario Kart World was number 3. Mario Kart World here does not include digital sales. It also does not include anything when it comes to the bundles. This would just be physical sales in the US, so the $80 game. Like that seems pretty good there too, removing all the other stipulations with it. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was 4, then Stellar Blade, which jumped up pretty well with the Steam release. Forza Horizon 5, also that fell a bit, but it's still holding pretty steady there with the PS5, and it appears based on recent analyst estimations, Forza Horizon 5 is the best-selling game on the PS5 so far this year. That's, again, pretty impressive. MLB The Show at number 7. Then we have Minecraft at 8. Grand Theft Auto 5, of course, at 9. And Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma rounding out the top 10. Now, no doubt, those are impressive numbers for the Switch 2. However, Matt Piscatella pointed out, and it's something I think many people were figuring, when a system comes out, it really comes down to how much stock can that company provide up front, because there is just a built-in base of gamers who are going to buy the system right away day one, and that's how you get like the crazy resellers, and it doubles in price because there are still a lot of people out there, a lot of demand looking to get the system. If you have 10 million people who are willing to buy day one, but you only provide 4 million, I mean, you're going to break records, obviously, here, 1.6 million, but there's still, it's not 150 million out of the gate, right? I do think the Switch 2 is going to continue its momentum just because the rest of the releases they have for this year, which does include a new Pokemon game that's being bundled directly with it, I think it's strong enough to continue along in its first holiday season. Remember, Donkey Kong Bonanza just came out, awesome title. It won't see its first holiday season for a few months still, and that's still going to be new for a lot of people who pick up the Switch 2, say, around Christmas times. That's still going to have a lot to say about sales this holiday, along with Mario Kart World, as that bundle will have ended, and then Pokemon Legends ZA kind of slots in. Now, I'll be more curious about next year, and then the following year, naturally, to see year 2 and 3, how they can continue that momentum, what big release they have set up, whether it's a new 3D Mario, a big new 3D Zelda game, a Splatoon, some of the just larger franchises like Animal Crossing maybe starting to show up, and then, yeah, you're probably going to be off to the races because there are many people who would buy the Switch 2 system to be able to play all of those games. So strong start here, no doubt, from Nintendo, setting records out of the gate in the US. Not surprising, just based on everything we've been seeing online, that and the Japan sales. We'll probably hear some more information from Nintendo here pretty soon, heading into August as they prepare their own financials. So expect a big number there too. Next up, let's talk about Sony, the PlayStation 5, and an update that they detailed over on PlayStation blog, which you can see here, where they say the new PS5 system update beta previews DualSense wireless controller pairing across multiple devices. This was indeed the big focus here, so the idea now is, let's say you have one DualSense controller, but you would like to use it on your PC, a PlayStation 5 upstairs, a PlayStation 5 downstairs, or maybe your phone or your Mac. You can then take that DualSense and jump between them easily. Really, it's able to save like 4 Bluetooth profiles, right, on any given controller here. So they do explain how to do this, which is mostly you have to pick a slot, as they say. Slot 1, 2, 3, or 4 are covered by the face button. So triangle, circle, square, and oh look, cross button. People keep telling me that's an cross button right there. Anyway, you essentially turn the controller on with one of those held down, at which point you'll see that the player indicator lights will change based on what you're connected to. So they have an example here. On your regular PS5 might be just 1 light on, 2 lights on would be another device, 3 lights on, 4 lights on, so on there. All right, so pretty straightforward and does add just more functionality to your DualSense controller, which is a good thing. The Xbox Series controller has had this functionality, so it's good to see that Sony also is adding that in here to the DualSense, because it's a lot easier to almost hotkey these syncing statuses up, so it's easy to just kind of jump around between different systems. Now, the other thing that a lot of people honed in on here, and I get it, because we just keep getting these breadcrumbs that are almost, it feels like it's leading us to them developing and setting up this environment for a handheld here in the next couple of years. They say on the horizon, power saver for games. So they say with this update, you may notice a new option in your settings menu called Power Saver. While this feature won't be available during the beta phase, once it officially launches, supported PS5 games will scale back performance and will allow your PS5 to reduce its power consumption when the feature is enabled optionally by gamers. If not enabled, or if games do not support the feature, the performance will not be scaled back and power consumption will not be reduced. You notice they have the little stars there next to performance. So one example they have is that VR mode is just unavailable during this performance save, or this power saver mode with cutting back performance, and that some gameplay features may even just be outright limited. Now, we've heard through rumors or reports and stuff that there is a developer backend environment that almost cuts things down quite a bit on a PlayStation 5 development kit that would seemingly mirror the idea of it being a lower powered handheld with, like, say, less memory bandwidth or cores, a lot of things that seem to lean into that. Then you see this when it comes to lower power consumption, a whole mode that they're playing around with. It's like, okay, so if they did a handheld, it would have to play the same games. It makes no sense to once again then divide up your development studios, especially since we're seeing these gaming PC handhelds already play things like God of War or Returnal or Days Gone. It makes sense for them to enter that space with a handheld that can still play the same games, just lower resolution, frame rate, effects, whatever, because you're shrinking it down to just a smaller screen. So again, we keep seeing these breadcrumbs. Here's just the latest one, and it does feel like Sony is working towards the idea of their own handheld in the next generation. Although, does it have to launch alongside of the PlayStation 6? Because most likely be playing these PS5 games that, I mean, the PS5 is going to be around for a long time. We all know this. PS4 is still around. PS5, that might be a 15-year system. We could be talking about that thing in 2035. So they can kind of launch the handheld whenever. I still think we're years off, but just something else to add there to the list of what looks like, again, a lot of references or things they're working on to get to that handheld. Next up, let's talk about Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. It's a game that's supposed to be coming out this year, although it said winter, and we know how it goes with these ranges in terms of seasons. Could end up into next year, 2026, and still be winter then, but it appears it could be coming sooner rather than later. And in fact, that direct, might be lined up for next week. So let's start here, though. This from Necro Felipe, who says, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity received a rating in Brazil. In addition to the game being able to be sold in physical media in the country, it is a sign that we will have news about it soon. Okay? And then Nate's been pressed constantly ever since he put out there that, to his knowledge, a direct was happening in July. Well, we're kind of down to the last week, and look, Nate said during his show when he was speculating and kind of kicking around the MVG, hey, you know what? maybe the last week in July, and that's kind of what I was thinking too. It makes sense. It was going to be the same week as Pokemon. It probably wasn't going to be the same week as Donkey Kong. It all lines up. It's there, right? Okay. It would also be ahead of any discussions they have or reports they put out for investors who will naturally be curious about what's going on with the slate of titles. But anyway, Nate says, when asked about a direct happening in July, just says that, to my knowledge, as in, yeah, I mean, he's already put that out there. It's not really an update, although a lot of sites said he's doubling down. He's just saying, yeah, I mean, it's, to my knowledge, it's still happening. We see this Age of Imprisonment rating. It does kind of line up, and right now I am expecting a direct to happen next week. Don't know which day. It could be Tuesday or Wednesday, but next week, before the end of July. So, should be pretty exciting, but I guess we'll see as we start up next week. And when we get that announcement, we got to do predictions, and then hopefully have a bunch of different announcements and a lot of release dates. We're almost into August, and there's still like 3 or 4 games that we need release dates on from Nintendo, with the big one to me being Metroid Prime 4. They better not do that weird thing where it's the first week of December. I kind of want to see how this would do if it shows up in the 90s with a rating. How would that do in the Game of the Year conversation? Kind of getting ahead of myself there because the game's got to come out first, but something to think about. In our last bit of news, let's talk about Square Enix and Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, which I'm very excited about. It's cool to see Final Fantasy Tactics getting kind of the spotlight, this remake set up for September. But there was an issue. Square Enix, which we've heard about many times now, kind of lost the source code for the game. So what was their strategy? They really did rebuild it. So this we can see posted by VGC, where they say Square Enix has confirmed that the original code for Final Fantasy Tactics has been lost, and that the new remake of the game, Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, has therefore been rebuilt from scratch. This from the director of the game saying, quote, "This was simply the norm at the time. We didn't have the kinds of effective resource management tools available today, and we developed games by essentially overwriting the previous code each time we fixed a bug or added a new language. Since the classic version was intended to recreate the original game, we did have the option to implement using an emulator. However, this method wouldn't have allowed us to make granular refinements even if the objective was to recreate the original game. After our analysis, we felt the best way to ensure the game met modern playability standards while staying true to the original was to rebuild it." Like, apparently they reverse engineered this game, which is, I mean, one, I'm glad they didn't go, phone it in, just put it in an emulator, whatever, clean it up as best you can. It does sound like they really wanted to spend time with this game, and as they mentioned, make granular changes. But I'm glad that they didn't just go, we don't want to put it in the emulator. We also don't really want to rebuild the game, so let's just not do it. I am happy that Square Enix decided to make this move. I know that there's this weird thing about like the classic mode, the new mode, and like voiceovers. I'm just happy to see this be a thing, and it sounds like that they really put effort into it. So I'm excited for it when it comes out. That would be at the end of September. Absolutely picking this thing up physically, and we'll see with the Switch 2, I guess, how all that works out. But at the very least, I'll get it on the PS5, the disc, and everything. I mean, that when I look at Final Fantasy Tactics, I do immediately relate it to the PlayStation 1, like the PlayStation brand. But that's just kind of where I was playing it at that time. And then obviously from there, it kind of moved on to things like the Game Boy Advance and stuff. But yeah, classic title. Really happy to see it coming back here. I'll be there day 1, September 30th to pick it up. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, when you use a controller on a PC or phone, what brand do you use most? So the Xbox controller is the leading candidate here, and makes sense. A lot of people using Windows naturally play their games. The Xbox controller syncs up and works nicely with Windows, so I get that. The PlayStation controller, though, at 30%. A different third-party controller there at 16%, and then Nintendo's controller at 9%. You know, the other thing that was interesting about the stuff with the Circana report is that 500,000 Switch 2 Pro controllers sold, and that's an $85 controller. So it seems like just in general, the people who are buying into the Switch 2 are very much like that diehard, like hardcore Nintendo fan. But either way, I look at this and go, yeah, okay, Xbox controller, clearly. I mean, it has the feature we were just talking about, syncing to multiple devices, but PlayStation is a close second. And I am wondering if people will be more interested in the controller now that you'll be able to sync it to multiple devices on the fly. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from GameBit, who says, whatever happened with console bundles that actually match the console with images and design from the game? This new gaming era is terrible. Just glad I was able to live through the good times. Well, if you look at the Switch 1, I assume you're talking about the Switch 2 with the Legends ZA bundle. The Switch 1, the first couple of special editions weren't like great, technically. I mean, we had the Monster Hunter XX or Double Cross or whatever bundle, and all that really was is just like the gray etching on the dock and then the back, I think, of the main unit. And then we had some other stuff later on that was the Splatoon, which is the different color Joy-Cons. It wasn't until, I think, the Pokemon Let's Go games that we had something that was a bit more substantial. And that would have been a year and a half into the generation. So with that lined up, maybe holiday next year, we'll see something that is a bit more substantial in terms of the special editions, with the systems actually being dressed up a bit to match the game that it's paired with. It's just right now the way it is, Nintendo trying to just get more and more systems out there in its stock configuration. So even being able to pair a game like Pokemon, just a Pokemon game, brand new one, will allow them to sell more systems and kind of work through this initial year or two. Then I think they'll have a big game, like a really big game, like a 3D Mario, a 3D Zelda, a Splatoon, etc. Then you might see things like a new Switch 2 edition with all the bells and whistles when it comes to like the decorative touches and stuff later on. So I think we're still a year and a half away from anything like that really happening. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear about how that $80 game Backlash seems to have worked and Microsoft backtracked on Outer Worlds 2. Yeah, the price went down. What could this mean, though, for Nintendo going forward when they do attempt another $80 release? Well, you can check that video out below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.